So here we are.
Here we are.
How long have we been talking about this?
It seems as long as we've been talking, but probably a good year.
Yeah, it's been about a year.
Probably a good year, yeah. And,
So this is the culmination of a lot of conversations at Mimi's 24th Street Cafe. But this is a Christian and a Muslim walk into a studio. So here we are sitting in the studio, and I'm wondering if people can tell yet who's the Christian and who's the Muslim.
they're not going to know.
They're not going to.
Unless you give it up. If you
well,
want to give it up, go ahead. But they're not going to know who's the Muslim.
Okay.
or the
Well,
Christian.
when I say that your name is Emad, I think they're going to know. And when I say my name is Bob, I
you just gave it up.
I think they just.
I know. I thought we were going to.
mystery.
I thought we were going to tease him for a bit, but
mystery
all right,
solved.
All right,
mystery solved.
He's not the Muslim. All right. Mystery
So,
solved.
Emad Meerza,
Yes, sir.
you have done a lot in this city, in Kern County, Bakersfield, and really all over the place. Tell us a little bit about who you are.
You know, I'm a Kuwaiti-born Arab Muslim. Came over to the United States in 1971, some 45 years ago.
How old were you then?
I was 5.5 years old.
Okay.
And been living here.
Wait a minute. Does that make you over 50?
That makes me over 50.
I just wanted to make sure we understood each other.
I'm in the 50s.
All right, good.
Very proud to be over 50, actually.
Whatever.
But 45 years, not just in the United States, proud to be 45 years in California and Kern County and right here in Bakersfield. And so lived here all my life from kindergarten on, from kinder on, and only left this county for a 4-year stint down at USC. And otherwise, just proud to be raised here and still have my roots back in the Gulf, back in the Arabian Gulf, and I visit back there. My father still resides there, and family and so on and so forth. My mother's on the other side of the Gulf from Jordan. Just recently visited family there. Very involved in community work for nearly 2 decades, or over 2 decades, honestly.
In what way?
Community outreach, but more in a very religious context. I'm a very proud and very dedicated Muslim. And after spending a lot of time reviewing and researching and learning the faiths of my, American neighbors and friends and family, I took it upon myself to go out and talk about faith and educate people about the Islamic faith and talk about Middle Eastern comparative faiths, those that are the Abrahamic faiths, if you will. Christianity, Judaism, and Islam, and then just to help to connect the community, I brought people to Islam. Honestly, many non-Muslims became Muslim, and I'm proud about that. I think it's whether you live a good Christian life, a good Jewish life, or a good Muslim life, you live a good life if you do any of the three. So I'm very proud about that, and just serve my community, all of it, not just the Muslim community. I enjoyed serving my community. I really did. It was one of the. Looking back at it, 20 years after, I'm very proud that I had that opportunity. I'm very humbled by it and very grateful to God that I got to serve the people and they accepted my service all in all.
How did you serve them? In an official capacity?
Yeah, I think a lot of it was, we were building a community, so there was a lot of just putting things together over years and, leading congregations and outreach outreach to the Christian communities, the Jewish communities, outreach to the public, trying to put together our own small Muslim community. And then in the last 10 years, it got much more formal. And for a long stint, I was the official elected leader of our community, known as the Emir of the Muslims of Bakersfield and Kern County. And I was very humbled in that role. And that, of course, took us in a lot of different directions, dealing with both the local issues and also with a lot of national organizations and, of course, in some national security matters as well.
How many Muslims in Kern County, practicing Muslims?
We've said for some years now, roughly around 5,000 Muslims. It could be more than that number. It could be a little less than that number. I definitely would incline to say there's more. But it's a very unique and a very dynamic.
Okay, so I just want to step in right now.
Step in.
I just want to step in right now. So, 5,000 active Muslims in Kern County. You guys have regular gatherings. You have mosques,
Yeah, absolutely.
and whatnot. But do you guys have, barbecues in the park and I mean, what are the get-togethers? What do you guys do when you get together?
That's it. Do you guys eat?
I'm just
I'm just asking.
asking.
Do you guys eat?
I'm just asking.
Of course we eat, and of course we have barbecues in the park.
I don't know.
We have potlucks and barbecues in the park, and let's meet at the pizza place. Let's go to John's and things like John's Incredible and whatever. Yeah, we do it all. We do it all. We do it at the mosque. We do it in parks. We do it at local businesses. Just pretty much at park. Just same thing that any Christian organization or community or Jewish or whatever would do. The Muslims do.
Well, I bet you, and this is just my opinion, but I bet there's some people that would be surprised to hear that.
I'm sure there would be. I grew up in this county, and I'm as American as apple pie, and I really mean that. Okay, there isn't a thing I didn't do in this county.
Well, hell, wait a minute. Spicy apple pie.
Spicy apple pie.
It's got,
darn good.
listen,
I mean,
a
you
little
spice
extra
apple
dash
pie-
of cinnamon,
exactly.
some nutmeg.
Yeah. It's a lot. It's
What's a Middle Eastern spice? Give me the big one.
Oh my God, a Middle Eastern spice, saffron.
Okay,
maybe
with some
is,
saffron.
Yeah,
Bang.
a little bit of mint. Mint leaf.
There's some mint.
Yeah, I mean, listen, really, the Muslim community in Kern County today is as dynamic and American and as any other community you're going to find. My family is as American as apple pie.
Yeah.
The only difference is that we're Muslim. I mean, that's
Right.
it. And when I say difference, the color of skin makes a person different, maybe. A religious orientation makes a person different, maybe. The color of their eyes, the way what clothes they choose to wear. I don't know. Maybe there's some of their traditional songs or some of their cultural ways. But those differences are what usually the world understands as what makes up America. Right?
I agree.
And so it's about as American gets, because we're a melting pot. We started out as a melting pot, and whether you came over from different countries in Europe, they saw themselves as different from each other as anybody else. Whether you were Irish or whatever it might be, you were welcome in this country, and you kind of so obviously some people might have not liked you, and they had the same problems that some people today still have.
Right.
But that's what this country was made out of. The fabric of this country is an immigrant fabric, and those immigrants brought with them their ways.
Right. Right.
And I think that we got to embrace that. We can disagree on matters. We can talk about our different ways. Some of them, and we should be respectful, but we could disagree on whether we think this should be done in this context or whatever it might be. But we should try to respect one another. This is what this country's about.
I agree. So, my people. So I was born in England. So neither one of us was born in this country.
No, you're an immigrant too.
Yeah, my dad was in the military, but I was born in Banbury, Oxfordshire, and a little bit before you were born.
Just a little bit.
But my people, like my grandfather, was a full-blooded Cherokee Indian, and so that
Got a whole other take on this matter.
Yeah. When you read stuff about the Trail of Tears and some of that. I think we had a discussion once about Andrew Jackson.
Yeah.
That he is not my favorite president.
Well, you get a
time.
whole other side of the story.
Right. Right.
We have a tradition in Islam that says if you've only heard one side of the story,
Yep.
then you know nothing.
Yeah.
You know nothing. You still don't know anything.
Who said that?
It was the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him.
Oh, okay. There you go.
And so I think when you learned in that case, when you hear it from both sides, you get another vantage point altogether. It may not necessarily land you against one thing or for another, but it definitely gives you a fuller picture.
So that's what this is all about. Is trying to bring some of that understanding.
Let's face it. What we can do for people, as we've seen in the past, is that we are going to bring both sides of the story to this table.
Right.
And that's going to give them a bigger picture, a clearer picture.
That's true.
And that's going to land them in a better place to make a decision or an understanding or come to a conclusion.
Understanding, yeah.
God willing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I've lived in Bakersfield 30 years. I have a background that is extremely diverse. I'm one of those guys that when I think I have a good idea, and trust me, I almost always think I have a good idea.
I've noticed that.
Yeah, I know.
I've noticed that.
I always think my ideas
even your
are
bad
good.
ideas are good ideas.
Sure.
Well, anyway.
But
when I hurt your feelings
when I have what I think is a good idea, then I just do it.
All right.
There's a scripture in the Bible that says, "As a man thinks in his heart, so is he." And so I just figure if I believe it, then other people will believe it. And trust me, that's been borne out. I've worked with some famous celebrities over the years, and I've walked into those situations with confidence, knowing a little bit about who I am.
Well, I like a doer. I think a
Yeah.
person who believes in something sincerely and then
Yep.
is willing to act on it. It's a very admirable, quality. But it also
Right.
means something's going to happen.
Right.
And if you just think things out and never act on them, nothing's going to happen. Good or bad. And so doers, I think, it's an important characteristic to have. But I've also seen in you. Yeah, I mean, about as energetic as a little schoolboy who
Come on,
I'm
man.
serious,
I just
running
like
into
it.
a John's Incredible Pizza.
I just
You know?
like it. And like you, I know that you're very learned. I know that not just, you didn't talk about going to USC, did you? You went to USC.
Well, that's not where I think I got my knowledge. The knowledge that I'm very proud of and pleased about and grateful to God for is the knowledge I got after age 30, and it was at the I guess you would say at the feet of some of the most learned people I believe that were out there, and God just led me in some good directions and gave me some humbled learning, and it opened up my eyes to a lot of good things. But also experiencing people every day, and learning
Right.
from them, talking to people like yourself,
Yeah.
young and old, multi-ethnic, multiracial,
Yeah.
and but yeah, my experiences, my travels in the last 20 years have really shaped my understanding of the world.
Let me throw a name at you, and you tell me, give me one word to describe this person. You ready?
God, yeah, I'm ready.
Colin Kaepernick.
Well,
One.
I'm looking for one word.
Boy, that's difficult.
It
See,
is.
here's the thing about you.
It is
Yeah,
difficult.
you
It is.
pause, comma, right here. You and I both know, because we hang out all the time, that you usually use about 50 words to my one,
Right,
and it's the truth. You
right.
just
It's
like
true.
you
It's
like
true.
to talk.
I'm not going to lie about
Well,
that.
it's true.
And here
I mean, how can you?
Here I am having a hard time coming up with a word.
Well, no, because if I had said come up with 1,000 words, you'd be off to the races. But
You're
one
right. I
word is
would've-
difficult for you.
that's true.
But just so everybody
right. That is
knows,
so true.
we have a safe phrase. We have a safe phrase between you and me.
This is a safe phrase when I'm right and I'm really pummeling you. You got to stop me.
This is
You got to take a breather.
This is 100% because you cannot stop yourself. You
right,
don't have
all
a
right,
filter, and you don't have an off
What
button.
is that phrase, sir?
The phrase when you are going and I cannot stop you is, how about them Cowboys? When people hear
Give
me
them the
say,
background on that.
so when people, well, you're a big Cowboy fan.
I am a huge
You're a huge
Cowboy
Cowboy fan, and so when you hear me say, how about them Cowboys? Even if I lean in and interrupt you with that,
I
that
gotta
means I need you to stop talking for a minute.
Foot in mouth time.
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah, I get it. Okay.
All right, so one word for
one
Colin Kaepernick.
Courageous with a question mark. Courageous with a question mark.
What does that mean?
Well, you told me this morning that Shaq had said, I just kind of wonder, why now, or things like that. Some people are just wondering. They're calling into question timing more than anything.
Yeah.
I don't think it's wrong to make a stand on an issue that has some merit. Okay. So whatever the issue might be, if you really if you're a conscientious objector on a matter that you're really sincere about, and you have there's some meat and potatoes there.
Sure.
It is somewhat courageous. Again, for me, I got to go back to Muhammad Ali and how many people hated him, hated his guts, and maybe to this day still do, for being a conscientious objector in the war that he was asked to fight.
Right.
And when he and people don't realize that he was willing to throw away his championship belt, the money, go to jail, whatever it took to say.
He gave up the prime years of his boxing
and then,
career.
of course, you add to it for sports fans like you and me, the prime years of his career, just to find out that he was right. That to find out constitutionally he had every right to do what he did. You don't have to agree with him to this day. You do not have to agree with his position. That's okay.
Yeah.
That's what this country is meant to do for you, is to say you can agree to disagree. But if he has a constitutional right to do that, then we're going to let him do it. And I believe that there are some checks and balances there when it comes to morality and virtue and things of that effect and modesty. We can get into that later about things that people can do and shouldn't do.
Well, sure. Well,
You know what
hold
I mean?
on. Oh, so Kaepernick. We agree that he has the right to
Yes.
do what he's doing.
No
to
doubt
sit
about it.
down,
Having the right, he has
to
that.
sit down and not stand for
Well,
the
it'd be a
national
foolish
anthem.
argument to say he doesn't have the right.
Okay, so personally, for you, do you agree with him?
Well, I believe I'm not going to state that I have a conclusion completely on this matter in terms of whether or not he should himself personally do this. But do I believe the issue should be discussed and he has a point here? Yeah, I think there's more to this than people know. I think there are some other verses in the national anthem that people should talk about and ask more about, you know?
Well, yeah, Star Spangled Banner has like 3 or 4 verses, and there's one that talks about slavery.
Yeah,
it's
there you go.
it's just there.
Right. And
You
this is-
can't, but we don't sing it.
And we don't sing it. And I think that at least, you know, we should understand that in those days, slavery was something that was not only accepted. I mean, it was utilized in many ways.
Francis Scott Key, the guy that wrote the national anthem, was a slave owner.
There you have it. And so the point is that these matters, we can't just erase it or ignore it or pretend that it shouldn't matter.
Right.
And then I think if you fast forward, let's put Kaepernick aside for a minute and talk about, you know, from the 1860s when Abraham Lincoln signed the proclamation.
Yeah, the Emancipation
Proclamation.
Right.
You know, that started the real suffering of the black people, in my estimation, because then people were forced to do things they didn't want to do. And so other people like the African slaves were forced into places that they had to really, you know, they had no more cover, they had no more, you know, they had to fend for themselves and so on and so forth, but it didn't change their status. For about 100 years, it didn't change their
Right.
status. Then you fast forward to 1960s America.
Come on.
And if you want to tell me that we didn't have prejudice, racism, and bigotry wide open in the South. I mean, you sat there and you spoke about it with pride.
Right.
And you want to tell me that's not recent history? We're not talking about the ancient Roman times or the Greek times. We're not talking about the medieval times. And we're not talking about 17th century England here. We're talking about the United States of America in 1963 and 65 and 67. I mean, the Cowboys were already on the scene, you know? And so my point being that I brought up, I was going to bring up one matter to you. Let me ask you this. Let me ask you a question.
Ask.
How proud could you be of a people who take a little girl, an innocent child, who has to go to school with federal agents guarding her body so that grown Christian men, Bible-wielding grown men, don't hurt her or kill her because she's simply going to a school where there are white people?
Right.
How do you have pride in that?
Yeah.
Tell me where Jesus would say, that's a good thing you did.
Yeah. See,
And not absolutely skewer you and put you in the same category as those leaders in his time and day that were vipers.
So I agree. However, I disagree with you calling them good Christian men. Just as I could bring
My
up
apologies.
Yeah, just
My
as
apologies.
I could say
Totally agree.
ISIS, it doesn't represent Islam.
Completely agree with that
right?
statement.
So
Absolutely.
I don't think those were. They were as far from Christians as you can. They think they're Christians. There's something that I like to tell people.
But you'd have a hard time convincing their family members and their descendants that they weren't Christian men.
No.
And
I think there's a lot of people on this earth, and especially on my side of the aisle with Christianity, that know a lot about God. And they don't know him. That's the difference.
Let's do something. Let's set aside Christianity for a minute. Just say they're good American patriots.
Okay.
They're defenders of what America stands for.
Well, sure.
They're protectors of established institutions.
Sure.
And established ways.
Yeah.
And ways that people should understand and respect. And if you live in America, this is how you should be, you know?
Right.
Well, if you live in America, darn it, you little 12-year-old girl, you should know better than to go to this school because you're black.
Right.
And, and when we get back to the godly argument, I've said so many times, I've taught, students, Muslim students in this country, in this city, and I've taught non-Muslim students in this city. I said, what's a bigger injustice? To have prejudice, bigotry, and injustice to a man or a woman who chooses to be Muslim and practices Islam in this country, her Islam in this country, or to a man or a woman who is black African American, and has to walk around as an African American in this country? What is a bigger injustice? The fact that you've committed your life to God and to live a faithful life to God, should that be a bigger injustice, that they're prejudiced to that, or the fact that you have black skin? What is it?
Well, that's an interesting question, is it? Because
The answer is easy. It's an easy answer.
What do you think the answer is?
It's
Because I don't
easy.
think it's that easy.
Oh, it's simple.
What?
It's very easy. For something, it's
Well,
a bigger
apparently easy for you.
It's a bigger injustice to hate someone and to oppress them for something they had no choice in, and something that God chose for them, because then you're against God. You're not against them. God made the decision to make them African American.
Understand.
God painted their skin, not you.
Sure.
But I made the decision to be Muslim. And I can change my mind tomorrow to save my skin. I could say I'm not Muslim, and you don't have to put me in jail. You don't have to kill me. You don't have to hurt me. But a black man can't change his skin, nor can a black woman. That is a far bigger injustice to a person who can't change the way God made them. And you want to hate them for the way God made them?
Yeah, I hear you.
Who are you hating? Who are you hating on?
Let me ask you a question, because this opens up a whole other line for me. By the way, calling Kaepernick courageous, I had somebody that told me, they said, he didn't ask permission of his team. He's being paid by his team, and he didn't ask their permission to open up this hornet's nest.
That's where I said the question mark. There's all these other factors.
From where I sit, though, change doesn't happen when you ask permission. Change happens when you don't ask permission, because you know what's right, and you go. It's like Rosa Parks didn't ask permission to sit at the front of the bus, right? These things didn't. The African American students didn't ask permission to sit at the lunch counter. They just did. So I applaud him. Now, I don't know if his motives are 100% pure, because I'm not inside this young man's head. Yeah. But I say yay, because this conversation needs to continue. But where I want to segue is into the similarities between black Americans and your community. I know that, so here's a black American, Ben Carson, who is running for president, who is now a bit of a surrogate for Donald J. Trump. And Carson said during the debates that he didn't believe that a Muslim should ever be president in this country. And what were your thoughts on that? And more to the point, what are your children's thoughts on a statement like that from a very respected leader in this country?
Well, I mean, first and foremost, I told you before that people like this, they're given these opportunities to make these outlandish, unconstitutional, unjust statements, but they're given these opportunities by people in media, by people that know better than to ask questions that have no right to be asked. Why are you fishing? Why are you bringing up things that you should have a responsibility not to talk about, not to bring up, not to have people dialogue, and whether or not something unconstitutionally unjust, bigoted, and racist should be discussed or should be dialogued. I think the reason Ben Carson did what he did is because there was no political price that had to be paid for it. That it was.
Well, to the contrary, I think there was political hay to be made.
That's my point.
With his constituents.
If anything, it was the way to get more constituents involved in your campaign and money involved and things to that effect. It was just a win-win. And so in some cases they're impassioned by the statement because they believe it. They're taught to believe that this is the case. In other cases, like Trump, I think it's just good food, man. This is going to work for me. This is political, money that I can use or whatnot. Sure. So no,
it's an easy target.
We're an easy target.
But tell me about your children. How do they feel about that?
So I think just the children. I think the idea is that you don't tell children in this country, okay, that your faith in God and your commitment to that faith, okay, should exempt you from ever thinking to seek the highest office. If that was the case, if that's how the founding fathers had framed the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and so on and so forth, then you might as well go ahead and talk about it. Go ahead. Right. But if you are a traitor to this country, and you are treasonous to the foundation and the founding fathers, documents, then go ahead and state that. because you've just opposed the very Constitution that many soldiers have fought to to protect. The Constitution says to the contrary, right? That these matters. It does. I mean, nobody can argue.
There could be no religious test.
There can be no religious test, and so.
But what do you say? What do you say to the people?
So children should and have the right to be a bit disappointed, demoralized, whatever it might be at statements like that. But again, when you said the comparisons between the communities, I still think that we have seen just a tidbit of what the African American community has seen in these centuries that they have lived in this hemisphere, in North America, and then even our cousins in faith, Jews, have seen much more religious persecution, okay, than the Muslims have ever faced, and God willing will ever face.
Wow.
Okay? I really believe that
I'm surprised to hear you say that.
It's a fact.
Honestly.
They have been a minority over their history.
Well, that's true.
They've been a minority in either Muslim or Christian lands for much of that, and specifically Christian lands, and I think they've seen oppression from both. I would even venture to say that they've seen quite a bit, even more maybe, from European Christianity. But even in this country, they still face. I mean, today I was reading off a website that had some it was a Christian far right Trump supporting website that had some anti-Semitic phrases in it.
That's an easy go-to as well.
That's just sure. And so
easy target.
So yeah, right now the Muslim community, 1% basically in America, very little political power, can really do very little to hurt you in media.
How many of those 1% believe in Sharia law?
I hope to God they all do. Okay, but
so I'm glad you said that, because that brings the obvious question then for you. Hold on.
Belief in Sharia law does not mean.
How about them Cowboys? How about them Cowboys? So I just want to ask this one question.
I want to get you with that.
Okay, go ahead. I just want to ask you what trumps what? Sharia law or the Constitution of the United States?
Well, obviously, if you come and live in this country and you sign a contract to be a citizen of this country, or a legal resident, or a working visa person, or whatever it might be, Constitution trumps everything. Okay, you make a contract to live under the law of the land. All right, and you don't break that law. Now, if that law gets to a point where it oppresses you in matters of religion and practicing your what we call ibadah, which is your worship, then you are then asked to leave on your own. That is the only recourse you have with God. If and when you pass away and you couldn't do your prayers and you couldn't partake in your religious duties, and the angels asked you, this is right in the Quran, why were you unable to practice your faith? And you'll say, because those in the land oppressed us. They will ask you, wasn't God's land spacious enough for you to go and migrate, find a place that didn't oppress you? So the only opportunity you have with God, if you aren't practicing your faith in a country that is opposing it, is you're supposed to leave.
Right.
Okay. So here's the point, though. If this country gets to a point where it oppresses Muslims or anybody else, any other faith, to the point where they can't practice their faith and worship God, the God that they believe in, then we are no longer the America that we tout and are proud of, and we should at least sit back and accept we don't get that prestige, we don't get that honor. If we're going to start restricting people from worshiping God in the ways that they want to worship God, which is we've said that it's okay, then we aren't the America that the founding fathers created. Okay?
Are you free in this country?
Without a doubt. I wouldn't be sitting here if I wasn't free. So you hear the way I talk, you know the way I practice my faith, you know the way I raise my family. I'm an American through and through. Listen, I'm a Muslim first
and yet the disconnect for me, and it has been, we've had conversations about this before, the disconnect for me comes when you say, I hope that they all believe in Sharia law. And so true freedom to you would be to live under Sharia law, wouldn't it?
What word? Give me a word from the Bible in the first 5 books that you don't believe in. Give me one word that you say is not from God.
Okay, so
what one word? Just is there an answer? Can you answer that one?
Yes.
What one word is not from God?
Okay, I can tell you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can tell you. Now now we're getting into some theology.
Sure, but the point is,
but I'm telling you, just because it's in there, like Moses in the book of Exodus, right? Mm-hmm. And that's one of the first 5. That's part of the Pentateuch. Mm-hmm. He says, by the way, I went to Bible school.
I know that.
Come on.
Go ahead.
All right. People make fun of me when I say that, by the way. Oh, he went to seminary.
Nothing wrong with seminary.
When Moses tells the people that this is the law that's from God. And one of those laws is if a man rapes a virgin, so let's say a 30-year-old man rapes, and a virgin in those days would be like 12 or 13 years old because they got married young.
Very young.
So a man rapes a virgin, then his punishment is that he must purchase the virgin from the family, and she becomes his wife. And so I have to tell you, I was a fundamentalist for most of my life.
So you're going to give me an unorthodox answer to my question.
Of course, I'm going to give you an unorthodox. But you listen. You open. You open this door.
Okay,
So
go ahead and give me the unorthodox answer.
thank you.
Okay.
So I was a fundamentalist
But you know how many other Muslims?
for years. Hold on.
You know how many
Hello.
Muslims are
Hello.
like you?
I don't know.
Yes. Here we go. Go
hold
ahead.
on. Hold on. Let
Okay.
me talk to this wall. So anyway,
I'm gonna let you finish because you're older than I am. Go ahead.
I was, and this is just
Age before
This
beauty,
is just
my
letting
friend.
some people know
All
who
right,
I am.
I know. Go
I
ahead.
am a recovering fundamentalist.
Very good.
I believe in the Bible. Do I believe that a story that I just told you about raping a virgin was God? I don't know, man. I don't know. And here's the crazy thing. I don't just know about God. I say this without any trepidation and without any ego or anything. I know him. I walk with him. You and I have had conversations
Sure we
this
have,
way.
yeah.
And so my conversations with him are like this. Lord, I see that in Scripture in the book of Exodus. I don't know you this way. So is that you or is that not you? And so, I have more questions the older I get. Boy, if you had encountered me in my 30s, we would have debates that would just go boom.
I got you.
Or even 40s. But the older I get, the less I know.
I get it.
The less I'm sure. So back to the point.
Back
You
to the point.
just led me down a little bunny trail.
I'm gonna bring you right back.
Go
You
do
know
what you
that.
do.
Here's what you do. You go way out here.
No, I
way
did
out
not
there,
go
and I
way
just
out
bring you
there.
Right back to the straight
I had
line.
to speak to the wall.
So my point is this, okay?
Yes.
When I say, I hope they all believe in Sharia law, which
Yeah.
is to say, if a Muslim says, I don't believe in the Quran or any one word of it, okay? You cannot say you're a Muslim and say, I don't believe in that part of the Quran. It's all from God.
Aren't there Muslims that are very devout that do not believe in Sharia law?
It isn't that. You guys are, it's like we're somehow removing true knowledge and application of faith over the millennia that humanity has existed with faith out of the equation. It's as if every Tom, Dick, and Harry can just say, well, let's practice it this way. No. There is an order, a structure. There are rulings. There's time and
All right.
place. There's returning back
All
to
right.
the scholars and understanding
So-
what part of Sharia law or the Torah. Now, look, the Jewish sages over the ages had to sit and tell the Jews how they could practice their faith. You know from when? From the time of Pharaoh.
Yep.
When they couldn't construct a temple.
Right.
They had their daughters being raped and their sons
Yeah.
being killed.
I hear you.
And God said, you make temples in your own homes. And they had to figure out a way to make that work. Just like today, you got ultra-Orthodox Jews in Israel right now trying to figure out how can we complete our faith when we cannot complete our own sacrifice in our annual most sacred holiday because these pagans are up on that hill and they're up on that Temple Mount. We got to tear that down and we got to rebuild the temple for us to have legitimacy. Well, what are their real scholars, their orthodoxy, those the pillars that make them understand, no, you can't go blowing things up? Tell them, no, leave it. God, it's okay. This is how we're supposed to do it and God will change things in his time. Okay? And so, yes, there's this fundamental understanding of what the scripture says, but then there's applications and how what you're allowed and not allowed to do. God did not allow Jesus, for example, to do everything that was mandated at the time. So when they came to him and said, just for example, your cousin, the prophet John, was just beheaded for doing something that God would have him do. Aren't we going to do something about it?
He did.
Well, in your estimation, in your opinion, he did. In my opinion, it's like, well, somebody committed a crime, okay? And if he did it, here's the thing: had he did it under Moses, did it under David, he did it under Joshua, he would have been brought to the court. He would have been, found guilty, and he would have been executed, okay? And Jesus had no power, authority to do that.
For future reference, is it fair to say when I say I'm a recovering fundamentalist, you are straight in the pocket of fundamentalism?
I'm definitely, I understand faith from a very orthodox perspective.
Okay.
But I practice it very flexibly.
Tell me.
And I have what we call a marja, okay? or a return. I go back to those that are more knowledgeable than me.
Right.
And they have to be the vast majority of the most knowledgeable people, because the majorities don't err. A single scholar can err. The best of them can err. A human can err. Okay?
So this is like the
But-
scripture that says, in multitude of counsel, there is safety.
There you have it.
Sure.
That's
Okay.
it. Exactly.
All right. So
when you go back to the majority of the scholars, just like the majority of the Muslims or the majority of humanity, God, I mean, we don't even have any kind of hope in humanity as we should. The majority of humanity, we had this discussion. Do you remember when I said to you, what did I say? When you said humanity's sick,
what did you say?
I said the majority of any country, China, Japan, Nigeria, Brazil, America, when you ask them, do they love a man who's honest, that God-fearing, generous,
Right.
good to his wife, raises his children, or do they love the adulterer who steals and cheats and kills and this and that? What do they all say?
The good guy.
The good guy.
Sure.
People love good things. They love nobility, morality,
They
virtue,
do.
modesty. They do. They really do.
But did your mother not ever tell you, if everybody walks over a cliff, you're going to walk over a cliff because
Sure.
everybody? So
But that happens too.
These have.
But when you ask people, even those that are walking over a cliff, what they're doing, they think they're doing good. They still have that belief that they belong to something good. You know, to
Right.
get people in this country to agree to something that is bad, you got to convince them what they're doing is good.
Well,
You
I'm
really
not so
do.
sure. I'm not so sure with the political race we see right now that there's not a segment of society that's buying in, saying we're willing to overlook all of the terrible stuff that we know about you, whether it be Hillary Clinton or whether it be Donald Trump. We're willing to overlook all of it because we're just tired of who we have now, Barack Obama, and we're tired of this. And more than anything else, we are frightened. Fear is completely driving this country right now. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. Well, look, you have to make people feel two things. Like my daughter just taught me this last night. She was talking about this in her one. of her
I'm glad to hear that you're still learning.
Oh, I learn every day. I told you, I learn from young and old. you know?
Right.
But the two things is to make people feel really special,
Right.
and that they're better than everybody else, and that they're a unique, lot, and they should be very proud of who they are, and so on and so forth. The other is to make them scared as heck that if they don't do a certain thing, they're going to lose everything. They might even
Right.
lose their own lives. And we do have a lot of fear pandering, and people are really buying into the fear. And there's a lot of arrogance building, building a person up and telling them how great they are. We have a saying too, that the person that praises you in your face breaks your back. And so I've never liked the person who doesn't know me to start praising me.
Right.
Oh, God bugs the heck
Yeah,
out
I
of me.
don't like that either.
Immediately just
Of course,
don't want
it
that
never
guy.
happens to me.
Well,
but
anyway, that's understandable. You're a good-looking guy, though.
come on now.
Anyway, but
I'm not a pretty boy, but I agree. I'm probably a good looking.
This is
guy.
all because
Sure.
I trimmed my beard and grew my hair out, right? If we go back a year, you look like me and I look like you.
I know.
All
Well,
right? So
yeah,
were
but
the
you
pretty
know
boy
why I'm growing a beard.
because you want to look like me.
Okay.
No, anyway, Santa. Yes, I know why. It's a very admirable thing you're doing. by the way,
I believe it is.
And
yeah.
I'm trimming it back because I was called Santa.
Someone called you Santa, so you're
Someone
trimming it
called
back.
me Santa, so I trimmed it back.
And as you know, I go out to Union Avenue I go out all year long.
I got nothing against Santa. I just
But
don't want to look like
at
Santa.
Christmas
these days.
time, I am the Santa on Union Avenue.
Yeah, I love that. I
And
think that's really
and we
cool.
go to the children of the prostitutes and the children of the drug addicts, and we bless them with gifts, and I pray over them. And I had 2 kids last year pull on my beard. I have a beautiful fake beard that I paid a lot of money for.
Yeah.
And they pulled it down and they went, you're not the real Santa.
There you have it.
Well, not this year. Not this year.
Yeah, the fake things don't last, So I think it's good that you're doing it. I think it's very admirable.
Do what I do.
I support what you guys do. And I think
know
it's
you do.
wonderful.
I know
It's
you do.
it's one of the best things I've seen people do out there. It's very courageous work. Very courageous work.
Talk to me about Trump's immigration plan. Now, he unveiled this last night. So just as a point of reference, he visited with the president of Mexico yesterday,
Yeah, I saw that.
which was the Democrats called it a flyby photo op with a neighbor.
Right.
I'm not a Trump supporter. I'm not a Hillary supporter.
Yeah. We're in the
But
same
even
boat.
I have to say that when you go visit the head of state of another country, that seems presidential to me.
Mm-hmm.
So he did that and was very nice with him, and then came home and completely blasted everything out of the water with these statements like, we will build the wall.
Mm-hmm.
Mexico will pay for it. Now, their president says, that's a load of crap. We're
Mm-hmm.
not paying for anything. But he's saying, I will make them pay for it, and there will be no amnesty.
Yeah,
Which really, I mean, I heard that, and I thought, well, here we go. So that means 11 million people are at risk. And they're even talking about stripping the citizenship from about 5 million more who were born in this country
Right.
to immigrant parents. So
Right.
what are your thoughts on all this?
Well, unorthodox. I don't believe this man has ever wanted to be president. I really don't. I just don't believe this is still not a truly legitimate run. That's just at my core. I don't believe it. I believe he's an opportunist, and I believe he's doing this for himself. And I think that he's going to be able to segue, exit stage right with a whole lot more opportunity than when he came in. Okay, so that's first and foremost. I really don't believe he's doing this to be president.
Mark Cuban, the owner of the Dallas Mavericks and the guy that basically invented sound for the internet. Most people don't realize where he made his fortune. That's what he did. He has that same thought because he knows Trump personally.
Yeah.
He said, trust me, he has no interest in being president and doing the job.
I agree
He
with
just
Mark
wants
Cuban.
to build his brand up, step away, and make some money.
And he's gonna build his brand. He has built his brand up. Plus, that last night was the definitive statement, if you were really watching and listening, that's what he's doing. Okay, he went all gun. He knew that this wasn't general election politics. He knew that this was going to tear up the campaign in that way. Sure. But it was definitely gonna go back and grab all those. People that have that same kind of mindset, the people that he needs to win over right now.
It's red meat for the base.
Red meat for and it's a certain base, but it's the base he needs to get to where he wants to go, I believe. And so I don't think I don't believe it's sincere anyway.
What would he need to do to grab the backing of the Muslim community?
But wait, before we go there, but here's the problem with that. For those 11 million, but not just the 11 million undocumented, for the Latino community. These are some sacred matters. These are matters that are very personal to them. These are matters that have to do with family. They have to do with children. They have to do with grandparents. They do all these things. They have to do with all that they've invested in this country, And so I just don't like to see when someone just doesn't give a darn about his fellow Americans' feelings, what is important to them. I think when he started talking more like a mainstream politician, or just somebody at least who's willing to understand that mainstream America is not going to accept this kind of stuff, right. At least you're being respectful, even if you're being disingenuous.
Sure.
But when you get to a point where you just for these political points that you're trying to make, or for this brand building that you're trying to do, you don't give a good God darn about millions of people what's going to happen to them that morning or that evening, or how they're going to get hurt, how they're going to feel abandoned, or they're going to feel. I just think we're just going so far away from what the people that founded this nation, what they did for one another, how they argued matters. They might have disagreed. James Madison or George Washington or Ben Franklin, they might have vehemently disagreed on matters that were very pertinent to this nation's survival. But they were sincere in what they believed.
Yeah, I agree.
And they respected each other's humanity and person and integrity. And we're so far from that. It's like nothing matters anymore. There's nothing sacred. Not even your own honor is sacred anymore.
Right.
It's like I told you about us. I tell young Muslims that we don't tolerate people of their faith, just like they shouldn't tolerate us. You tolerate an alcoholic in the street. You tolerate an ex-con. You tolerate things that you tolerate, right? Because you have to, reconstitute them into something.
That's good.
You don't tolerate a good, sincere, God-fearing man or woman. You respect that person. You honor that person.
So respect over tolerance.
Respect, period.
I got you.
Honor, period.
I got you.
Okay? And tolerance isn't a word that you would say about a God-fearing man or woman.
Yeah, but that's become the buzzword lately, hasn't
and
it?
Honest,
let's all have tolerance.
And honest, God-fearing, law-abiding, hardworking, family values man or woman is someone you tolerate. Really?
Understand.
Does that sound right to you?
Syrian refugees. Let's take a small turn, but in the same topic. Syrian refugees. Now, Syria, probably one of the greatest human rights violations that we've seen, maybe since the Holocaust.
How about the human catastrophe?
Well, yeah, human catastrophe. Listen,
Yeah.
this is an evil regime that is in charge in Syria, and yet, how do you feel about Trump saying we are going to so stringently check those who apply for admission to this country to make sure that their philosophy agrees with our country?
Trump isn't the issue for me with the Syrian matter at all.
Tell me.
I don't believe he's going to be the president. I don't believe he's going to have much of an effect on this matter. I believe Obama is the issue. Obama has made a major mistake. Yes, the Bush administration got all this started and got Iraq started and opened up this powder keg and made a mess of things with all their lies and all their machinations. But the Obama administration had just the exact opposite ideological tendency, which is to keep us out of as many wars as possible, or out of war, I should say, okay? Sometimes you can't stay out of war. Sometimes, as the beacon of hope and morality and the beacon of decency and goodness and justice, you have to step into war to stop oppression, to stop major atrocities from happening. To when you do draw that line in the sand and say you can't do this, we're not going to allow it. And we made
World War II was a just
war. We made
war.
that promise to the world after World War II, and what happened to the Jews in World War II in particular. But there were a lot of other people that got a bad rap. And we said we're never going to do it again. We were very slow to stop it in Serbia, where the Serb Christians did it to the Muslims there. And that was a huge atrocity that we allowed, and we stepped in at a much later date than we should have. Okay, here
You're talking about the stuff in Eastern Europe.
Yeah, absolutely.
I gotcha.
Serbia in the 90s. The reality is that we had a lot of war criminals way after the fact. I mean, we should have plucked these guys up really early and kept them from doing the things they were doing.
Why do you think we don't?
Again, I think that we just have some tendencies innate in us that we tend to just drag our feet.
You don't think that it's that?
I think we could have did the same thing in World War II. I think we just didn't have as much empathy for the Jewish community as we did later.
But you don't think that it might be more sinister than that, and we might have agreements with some of these warlords and whatnot?
There's always political. Oh, without a doubt. The politics of it is a whole other issue. But I'm talking about the people. I'm talking about the churches and the synagogues and the mosques. I'm talking about the leaders that they just tend to brainwash people sometimes in ways like right now what they're doing to Muslims in different parts of the world, making them hate to a point where they can just see themselves killing without any no remorse whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
Like these like Daesh and whatnot. But the reality is Obama had a chance to fight a war, to lead the world in a war that really would stop a worldwide catastrophe. That we can only go back to World War II to get even an idea of how severe it is. I do have a personal attachment to it simply because we went in and I saw this on a virtual reality thing that I told you about.
Oh yeah.
But I put that helmet on and I felt like I was right there in that refugee.
This was in partnership. Wasn't this in partnership with a Catholic church?
Catholic church with some very prominent UCLA physicians. And they really wanted to bring over 50 Syrian refugee families.
Right.
And we got to be right there in a Syrian refugee camp. We got to walk through it with the kids. And, I cried the entire time I was watching it. And it wasn't because of the suffering. It was because that when you took everything away from these children and you put them in the most basic existence possible, but you gave them the ball.
Yeah.
You gave them the chalkboard.
Sure.
You gave them the playground. They were smiling ear to ear and they were happy. And I thought, oh my God, my children have all this stuff and they cry when they don't get the newest, and these kids just throw them a ball. They're just living in dirt. They just got a little cot here they're laying in. They got a little piece of bread. But kids see life so different than we. It's their innocence. It was their joy at the most basic things in this life that had me crying for about 30 minutes. And even though the world around them had given up on them and people had, except for those people that had erected this refugee camp or given them the safety net, they just had the most simple thing in life and they were so happy. And it was, to me, just another indication of the purity of kids, the wonderful way they look at life. And it was a very humbling experience for me. We sent over, thank God, an 18-wheeler very shortly after that into those Syrian refugee camps. And we saw a video of it going in right out of Bakersfield.
Right.
And so
that was your community.
That was our community. And the Christian community and the Jewish community wanted to join us. We just didn't have enough time to include them.
Right.
I had Christian and Jewish leaders that really were hoping that they could be a part of it. So,
what I really like is you have joined with us on some things. Even I work with an organization called Magdalene Hope that is run by a guy named Doug Bennett, who's just a hero in our community.
He sure is.
And he fights human trafficking all over the place, not just here, but in Las Vegas and Mexico and the Central Coast. And one of these days he's going to be around the world. But he is rescuing, and he's got a safe house up in the mountains where he takes these women. And I know that you and I don't mean to speak out of turn, but I know that you have supported that organization a bit, and so as a Christian in Kern County, who really has a stake in all of that, thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome. Actually, the reality is I should be saying thank you. When you see men and women going out courageously, with bravery, with humility,
Yeah.
sacrificing, putting their lives on the line, stopping evil, commanding right or forbidding wrong, which is what we're placed on this earth to do. If they're Christian, if they're Jewish, if they're Sikh, if they're Muslim, well, you got to support those people. You got to be part of that.
Right.
You got to be part of that good. And all I ever did was just say, I want to be a little part of that good, a little tiny, tiny part of that good. Because what I did was a little tiny, tiny thing. But the idea was that I prayed for you, and I believed in you, and I support you, and I do to this day. But yeah, Doug should be honored for what he's doing. He's a brave man. You should be honored in the way that you help him. Anybody, all of you. I know Brandon even here is a part of helping you guys out. Any of us, like I said, any of us decent, God-fearing people,
Right.
are going to want to support that cause. You know?
All right. So we've been talking for a little bit. I don't even know how long it's been.
And I've been sweating.
I know.
Yeah.
So this was our first episode. I don't even know what of this is going to see the air, if any.
Yeah, well, I agree.
But this is to knock the kinks out and
Right.
and to knock you around a little bit,
No doubt.
as I like to do,
I know.
as I am wont to do.
We'll see how it turns out.
So yeah, we will, won't we?
We will.
What did I just say?
I said we will.
What did I say?
I agreed with you.
Well, yeah, but you're saying it like I didn't say it.
I need somebody. I need somebody to chime in here. I'm agreeing with you.
Okay.
Okay. Don't get bent out of
But
shape.
thank you.
Your collar's
and
gonna
and I'm a little bit. My hand's a little sweaty, but first episode.
First episode. Is that under our wings already?
Come on, babe.
You want to finish it up right
Let's
here?
do.
All right. Well, listen. You're still looking good. You're not as old as you think you are. You're
Whatever.
old, but you're not as old as you think you are.
Whatever.
All right.
All right, man.
Thank you. Congratulations on our first episode.
There it is.
All right.